Hey, how you doing? This is Adam Post. Sony shuts down woke game studio permanently. Sony spent a lot of money on this game studio. They just bought it in April of 2023. Did they know it was making a game that was obviously going to wind up being a complete failure? They certainly didn't realize that when they bought the studio. They thought it would be successful. They're trying to build their business. You can understand that. And sometimes an acquisition from a big company doesn't work out. Even though these people get paid millions of dollars, they have advisors. When companies want to get into a certain area of business that they're in, but they want to be in more, or they see a special advantage and they can build their niche and become competitive, sometimes they will spend hundreds of millions of dollars or even billions of dollars without really thinking things through, or sometimes it becomes a competitive situation where other people want to get into that business. There's a short time window. I mean, look at Elon Musk even. He spent $44 billion on Twitter. Twitter right now is worth around $9 or $10 billion. It's apparently worth supposedly the same amount as Truth Social, though it's hard to compare the two. But Elon Musk did wind up spending a lot of money on something that doesn't have nearly as much value as it had when he bought the company. Free speech is priceless, but people do make business moves that sometimes don't work out. So even big companies with sophisticated people sometimes make business moves that don't work out. However, Sony is in the entertainment business. They should be able to look at something and say, hey, is this a compelling concept? Is there really an audience for this? Because if you own a gaming company, but you can't even understand whether or not something's compelling, whether or not it's something that you can find customers for, that is a little hard to take. They should know better. From Bloomberg, PlayStation shutters studio behind Concord video game flop. And from Breitbart, go woke, go broke. Sony shuts down studio behind Epic Gaming failure Concord. Concord was just one failed game, but it was such a failure that it was enough for Sony to say, okay, we are shutting this entire thing down. And when a company decides they don't want to be in a business that they've been in, and they have this separate division of sorts, all these people, these operations, this infrastructure, that actually still has a lot of value. So companies will go and look for strategic options. You go to an investment banker, you go to sophisticated financial people. They look at what you have and they say, okay, well, what do you have? And then they think about who might want this, and then they help broker deals. This is not something that should have fallen apart just on one terrible video game. But it really did. And we'll look at Sony's official statement on this to understand their point of view. And I'll try to translate it a little bit into normal language, or at least understandable language, when they start talking about some of their business moves. But for them to have one flop of a game and for it to destroy their entire investment, which we don't exactly know what it is because it wasn't published, how much they spent to buy Firewalk Studios. But we do know that they apparently spent more than $200 million just on this one game, which doesn't include the cost of the IP to acquire the Concord IP. It doesn't include all the other expenses related to acquiring the entire entity of Firewalk Studios and continuing to fund it. In the wake of the commercial failure of ultra-woke video game Concord, Sony has formally shut down the development studio behind the game, Firewalk Studios. Sony made a massive investment in both the studio and the game, which shut down just 2 weeks after launching due to a complete and utter rejection of the woke game by Sony's customers. We talk about this when I go over movies and TV shows and responses on social media in the entertainment industry in general. You can tell by the responses on social media if there really is any kind of legitimate interest in what you're doing. Some promotion, some feedback. You can see the feedback. You can kind of tell what's going on. And according to Sony, at least, they have been looking at doing something with getting rid of Firewalk Studios before certainly this week. They've been looking into their options, as they say, over the last few months. Bloomberg reports that the leftist video game industry has been dealt another blow as Sony Interactive Entertainment announced the closure of Firewalk Studios, the development team responsible for the recently released game Concord. The decision comes after the game's catastrophic commercial performance, which saw it taken offline in less than a month after its release. According to an internal email released by Sony Interactive on their official website, The closure of Firewalk Studios is part of the company's ongoing efforts to strengthen its studio business. But we consistently evaluate our games portfolio and status of our projects to ensure we're meeting near and long-term business priorities. After much thought, we've determined the best path forward is to permanently sunset the game and close the studio. The development of the game Concord was a massive expense, with initial costs exceeding $200 million, according to industry reports. However, this budget did not include the acquisition of the game's IP rights or Firewalk Studios itself, which Sony has only acquired last year, April 2023. Despite the significant investment, the game failed to connect with gamers on any level, leading to its swift demise. Analysts have attempted to identify the factors that contributed to Concord's downfall. According to IGN, the game suffered from poor marketing, a high price point, and most critically, a lack of differentiation in an oversaturated genre. These issues, combined with the game's unfortunate timing, ultimately sealed its fate. However, as Breitbart and many others have reported in the past, Concord's woke messaging and design played a major part in the game's failure. Here's an assessment of Concord. Concord, a multiplayer game in the same vein as Overwatch, faced criticism and negative feedback from the moment it was announced. Many players expressed displeasure with the game's design choices and the inclusion of pronouns for characters, which some viewed as the promotion of transgender ideology. Despite these concerns, Firewalk Studios chose to ignore the feedback, with director of IP Kim Creans stating in an interview with VGC that the trailer was just a tiny slice of the game and that players would eventually fall in love with the depth of the characters and their unfolding personalities and backstories. But when you're promoting this and you're getting feedback, you need to respond to that feedback, even if the game was completely different than the impression that it left from customers on social media and responses to their trailer. Perception is reality. It's not because we want it that way, but that's just the way that it is. The game's performance metrics painted a bleak picture from the start. During its early access phase on Steam, Concord only managed to reach a peak concurrent player count of 1,124. The open beta saw a slight improvement with a peak of 2,388 concurrent players. However, reports from True Trophies indicated that player counts on PlayStation had declined by 8.1% between early access and open beta periods. So people lost interest. The closure of Firewalk Studios is not the only casualty in this saga. Sony also announced the shuttering of another studio, Neon Koi, whose mobile action game will never see the light of day. So they actually worked on a mobile action game, and they're like, you know what? Let's look at this game again. Let's bring in some people that can actually give us some feedback. Of course, the game's not any good because even if they wanted to close down this other mobile studio, they could close the mobile studio down and release the game with someone else, utilize it as content, the same way they would do with a film. If they decided, you know what, we don't want to go forward with this film, but the thing is nearly done, let's let someone else distribute it, make a deal with somebody. But you can't do that if it's garbage. The news of Neon Koi's closure was largely overshadowed by the more high-profile failure of Concord. And the number of people losing their jobs over at Firewalk Studios looks to be around 210. That's what Bloomberg says. Concord and Firewalk Studios set a really good example. Same with the people at Pixar who pushed Pixar to insert a lesbian kiss in Buzz Lightyear that didn't need to be there. If you are pushing your own personal agenda with getting affirmation about your sexual preferences or your gender identity or your politics, and that's what you're pushing for, and you're so excited because you get the opportunity to push that out in mainstream entertainment, you shouldn't be too happy about that because you're going to lose your job. It happened to the people at Pixar. It's happening right now to the people at Firewalk Studios. And even if it's not you, but you're on a boat and those people on the boat are doing this and they're so excited and they're so affirmed and all, that boat is obviously going to sink. Get off the boat while there's still time. Because if you're at Firewalk now and you're one of those 200 people losing their jobs, now you're going to be competing with all of those other people for other job opportunities. Sony said they're going to try to help people get shifted around and maybe find another job, but that really apparently is not their primary concern. Their primary concern is Close this thing down, burn it to the ground. It's got absolutely no value. They bought it for at least several $100 million over the course of like just a year ago. It could have been $1 billion. We don't know. The moral of the story is don't be so happy when you get to push an agenda. There's always a price to pay. Here's what Sony Interactive Entertainment had to say themselves. Let's interpret it. Dear team, today I want to share some important updates from Sony Interactive Entertainment Studio Business Group. You get an email like this and right away you're saying, uh-oh, this could be a problem. We consistently evaluate our games portfolio and status of our projects to ensure we are meeting near and long-term business priorities. As part of our ongoing efforts to strengthen SIE's studio business, we've had to make a difficult decision relating to two of our studios, Neon Koi and Firewalk Studios. Expanding beyond PlayStation devices and crafting engaging online experiences alongside our single-player games are key focal areas for us as we evolve our revenue streams. So the idea was a good idea. They're successful with the single-player games and they want to expand the business. So they want a mobile format. Okay, they want to access the market for mobile games. They want multiplayer games. All that's good. And that's why, as a business move, they moved a little too fast and just assumed, oh, Firewalk Studios, they must know what they're doing. Let's just buy them. We'll get access to the multiplayer market. And how bad could the game actually be? How bad could the multiplayer game be? A lot worse than they realized. They continue. We need to be strategic, though, in bringing our games to new platforms and recognize when our games fall short of meeting player expectations. We, meaning us, the bosses, and you, the employees. While mobile games remains a priority growth area for the studio business, we're in the very early stage of our mobile efforts. To achieve success in this area, we need to concentrate on titles that are in line with PlayStation Studios' pedigree and have the potential to reach more players globally. So having a mobile games division is fine, but it actually has to make games that people globally would actually have some interest in. You can't just make crappy mobile games that no one actually wants to play. With this refocused approach, Neon Koi will close and its mobile action game will not be moving forward. I want to express my gratitude to everyone at Neon Koi for their hard work and endless passion to innovate. Which is to say, we may as well be gracious, but nice try. We'd rather throw out your game than embarrass ourselves any further. Sorry, Neon Koi people. Regarding Firewalk, as announced in early September, certain aspects of Concord were exceptional, but others did not land with enough players, and as a result, we took the game offline. We've spent considerable time these past few months exploring all our options. Exploring all our options is when you talk to investment bankers in finance and you try to figure out, is there anyone that will take this mess off of our hands? Maybe we could break even somehow. Maybe we could just take the loss on Concord and say, hey, other studio, investment group, don't you want your own really cool video game studio? They know how to make games. They put one out and okay, it wasn't so well received, but you could have them make another game and just take this off our hands and write us a check that, we'll take the loss on the $200 or $300 million on Concord. You pick up the rest and now you've got yourself your own game studio. No, thank you. People looked at it. Obviously, they went everywhere, probably even offered financing to whomever would take it off their hands because big companies can do that. They have access to money. It was hopeless. They have to close it down. After much thought, we've determined the best path forward is to permanently sunset the game and close the studio. I want to thank all of Firewalk for their craftsmanship, creative spirit, and dedication. The PvP first-person shooter genre is a competitive space that's continuously evolving, and unfortunately, we did not hit our targets with this title. We will take the lessons learned from Concord and continue to advance our live service capabilities to deliver future growth in this area. They continue, I know none of this is easy news to hear, particularly with colleagues and friends departing SIE. Both decisions were given serious thought, and ultimately, we feel they're the right ones to strengthen the organization. So this is good for us. It might not be good for you, but that's your problem. If you had not produced garbage for us, if you had produced something that had literally any commercial value, they would have continued with you. They're losing tons of money on this transaction, not the Concord transaction. the whole Firewalk Studios transaction. If you had just focused on making something people would actually want to play, you would not have lost your jobs. Neon Koi and Firewalk were home to many talented individuals, and we will work to find placement for some of those impacted within our global community of studios where possible. I'm a big believer in the benefits of embracing creative experimentation and developing new intellectual property. However, growing through sustainable financials, especially in a challenged economic environment, is critical. So sure, you can't just say, hey, look, we've got all this IP, isn't that great? Yeah, that's great, but if it's not commercially viable IP, it's the same thing as spoiled food. Do you want to buy some rotten meat? No, no one wants to buy rotten meat. No one wants stale cake, even if when the cake was fresh, it was actually delicious. IP that is not compelling, that is not well received by the people that are supposed to consume that intellectual property, it's less than worthless because it costs money to try to sell it and service the sale of it. While today is a difficult day, there is much to look forward to in the months ahead from the studio business group and our teams. I remain confident that we're building a resilient and capable organization driven by creating unforgettable entertainment experiences for our players. Thank you for your continued support. That's a well-written letter. That's a well-thought-out letter. It's important to read these communications that are corporate communications, laying people off, closing things down, explaining why they're doing certain things that they're doing. I just did a video about Marva Smalls, who claimed to have been planning to leave the company at Paramount. She was the head of diversity and executive vice president. She wrote this memo that claimed, oh, don't worry, I'm planning this. It's not like they're firing. They were clearly firing her. They were clearly telling her, look, we don't care how you explain it. You're out of here come January 1st. This letter was well written. Marva's not as convincingly, but in Marva's defense, there was really no way to explain, hey, I'm getting thrown out of here, because she had been with the company for decades. But Sony did it classy. They explained it all in a nice way. If you work for a company and you're pushing your affirmations for your sexual preferences and your gender identity and your social politics and your social agendas, you're going to lose that job. If you're around people doing that, but that's not you, you're still going to lose your job because it's not productive work. Let me know what you think of all this in the comments below. Always love to see your ideas. Please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. Give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you again soon with another story. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.